So with that, I would like to present this award to AppDynamics as the I2A Partner of the Year for 2018. Scott?
Thanks, Dave. All right. Picture.
Who's taking pictures?
Thank you.
Did I suck it in?
Yeah, me too.
There you go.
Wonderful. Thanks,
All right,
Dave.
thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to, I don't know how many presenters you've seen today and yesterday, but hopefully we'll get your attention with this one and talk about an industry term around AI ops. So my name is Steve Long. I'm a unique beast when it comes to these three companies. I'm the Vice President of Technology Strategy for AppDynamics, so I'm on the executive team, but I'm also a regional CTO. And the reason why I say I'm a unique beast is because every single one of these companies I've worked for or worked with. So my first role using AppDynamics was 9 years ago. I was one of the first 30 customers of AppDynamics. I was running operations for TiVo Corporation. We had problems there, and I put in a number of tools with AppDynamics being the center one. But it was about 4 or 5 years ago, I became the CIO of Green Dot Corporation. And for those of you who don't know what Green Dot Corporation is, it's about 150 million prepaid debit cards. It's the Walmart gift card program. And I had about $4.5 billion of cash in our bank. And we were a late stage startup. And this is where all three of these companies really come together. We had, after my first 90 days there, many outages in those 90 days, we really had a problem where we couldn't find our problems, number one, no cloud strategy, and our network gear was about the age of the company at the time. It was like a 12-year-old company. So I hired Trace3 to come in, do that review of the network with me, and built out an entire Cisco network across a switch data center across the street over there, as well as a data center in LA. And really, that changed my career at Green Dot Corporation as a CIO. But I brought in AppDynamics because we were having so many problems, and to pinpoint those problems was difficult. So I used some other tools along with AppDynamics, but I actually took that to the boardroom. We were a Sequoia-funded investment firm, and Green Dot went through a transition of about 18 months when I was there to rebuild the entire network, to find problems and fix problems. So today, I'm honored to be here because of these three companies, but I'm going to talk a little bit about AppDynamics and our product innovation. Does this look familiar to you? I'm pretty sure every single one of you in here has touched one of these technologies. So the situation today is that everything is becoming complex. The challenge that you guys have today in your environments is no longer just a needle in a haystack. It's moved with actually a needle in a needle stack. When you have a problem in here, that's your challenge. You have a curved needle or a needle with a blue tip, but the goal is to be able to find your problem. And this is petabytes of data that we've moved into. We've grown our entire ecosystem. We've moved from, on the left-hand side, to being just in a data center with a three-tier architecture, all the way into taking on technologies, hybrid cloud models, multiple cloud models, SaaS providers, petabytes of data. You've even got legacy systems that you're supporting. You need to touch into SAP or maybe IBM mainframes. You need to be able to see your problems. Your application for your company is your North Star. Whether you're a retail customer selling things like this, or a travel company, that's your North Star. And AppDynamics is there to be in the same boat. Your application is our North Star. So we share that. But when I was in the airport, I had a travel app. Travel app A couldn't get me to my gate. So I pulled up travel app B. And when travel app B worked right away on the same airport, it was Burbank, on the same network, I literally went to my gate, sat down, went to travel app A, and I wiggled that button because I deleted that app, and they lost me. They lost me as a customer. So now I use travel app B. I'm not going to say which ones, but Expedia was working. But that's the reason. Like, if we're in a needle stack situation instead of a needle in a haystack situation, this is the mindset we have to be in. You don't have a choice anymore. It's humanly impossible to find problems with the dependencies, the networks, the motion of growth that we're in. I mean, if you think about the way that we've moved from mainframes to server technologies to web. We're in the 4th generation, which is microservices and cloud. So this is a strategic need, and we've got highly distributed systems we need to track and trace. So with all of that, the scale and complexity, it's grown. And a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, depending on where you were in the spectrum, we took dev and operations, and we started throwing people at that problem. So you've got people, process, and technology, you got 2 worlds, you bring them together. But when we move to a chaotic situation with that much code, millions and millions of lines of code on 1 click can be executed now instead of hundreds of thousands, you can't just keep throwing people at the problem. And if you keep doing that, your expenses are going to go up. But the other side of that is you need to de-risk your situation, your application, your business, your data centers, your multi-cloud situations. And if you don't, there's a few things at risk, right? Your reputation, if you have an outage, can go down. Your social media coverage can go up. That's not necessarily a good thing when you have an outage. Your stock price, it's in jeopardy, right? So you have all these things factoring in, and then your job is also at hand when you have problems. So the chaos is huge. So the mindset, I like to think of it this way. When I first started at Green Dot, and I was about 5 years ago, I was reacting, I was investigating, and half the time I could never find the problem. I didn't have an RCA. So the mindset that we're moving into now with tools like AppDynamics and APM is to be able to find those problems. But we need to move to a place where you're finding and fixing. You know, I think the average outage survey of about 6,000 IT professionals is that an average outage is roughly 7 to 8 hours, and it's roughly between $400,000 to $500,000 of expense just to IT alone, not to mention what's going to happen to your revenues. So the goal is to move to a place where you can predict, you can actually have the answers, and then you can take that action. Because on the left-hand side is that finding, or my left-hand side is finding, but on the right-hand side, you need to take the action and fix. So with the investments that we made at AppDynamics, we bought a company called Perspica. That blue ring in the middle, that was a many million-dollar acquisition. And we took the best of AppDynamics, and we built underneath that the concepts of correlation engine, alerting, API, and unified dashboard. But with Cisco acquiring us for about $4 billion 2 years ago, we've also taken this strategy, this technology strategy, to say there's really 3 pillars. The first one, taking data in not only from the top 2, which is what we do really well at AppDynamics, which is the business and application, but really moving in to pulling in data from all of our Cisco infrastructures, but any third-party infrastructure. And to bring that together so that we can have better data and create the insights, where your problems are, how they're happening, so that finding can happen faster, hopefully in milliseconds instead of that 7 hours and $500,000 cost to you, and then take an action. Open that incident. Resource scaling. Maybe change some bandwidth on your software-defined network. But really moving the pendulum so that you actually have the ability to take action. So I'm introducing today, we've taken a really heavy development effort, investments, working with Cisco data scientists to build out a product underneath AppDynamics called the Cognition Engine. If you're a customer, this is something that's already in our code. It's already out in production. We're turning it on slowly on numbers of customers. By end of summer, it's going GA. So what is this? It's really taking information, all that data that's flowing through, streaming into our environment, that's stitching all your transactions together, and it's saying, I'm going to now make decisions on this. I'm going to look based on algorithm and all this data for your problem, and it's going to find your anomalies. And I'm a past CIO, a dumb CIO. I want a cognition engine that's saying, if I was in a NOC by myself, that it could actually pull my anomalies to my face and show me my problem to get to that mecca, which is, it's a 3-letter word, root cause analysis, but I think it's a 4-letter word, a positive one, which is automated root cause analysis. That's the mecca we're all going towards. So if you take an example, and in this room, I'm sure there's varying different applications. You've got the concept of a login, maybe a checkout, maybe moving money. I was doing that a lot when I was at Green Dot, and I had all those 150 million cards to deal with. And if there was a problem with that, time was money, and my CEO was going to end up in my NOC going, what the heck is going on? So when that, I like to call it feces hits the rotating oscillating device, and your checkout is not working, what do? You start to look, everything turns red. So at that moment in time, you need to figure out what's going on. So the goal with our cognition engine is not only to say that your business transaction of checkout is broken, but also the dependency map of the 50 different things or 100 different things that's building checkout tells you which one's broken, but it also rates them. It says with high probability number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, this is not only your problem at checkout, but in this example, say your inventory services is what's causing your checkout not to work, it's going to put that at a high probability number 1. Now I look at that and say, do I really believe that? Okay, great. You gave me a probability. So how do you believe that? So the second step is you start to look at the who, what, when, where, why, how, and take a look at what's happening inside of that. You then take a look at where your problem is, and then ultimately move from that 3-letter word of RCA to a 4-letter word, automatic RCA. And that's the mecca of the cognition engine, taking the best of breed of what we have and taking all the data that we have and making sense of it. So the last thing I'm going to share with you today is Barclays has been a customer of ours. They started with one application on a phone, and they've since then spread to 750 applications. They've gone microservices, so you can add 2 zeros onto that. And that's the coverage we have. And with that, they started reducing their issues, their outages, their man hours, but they built a big AI engine on their own. They built a huge farm, a GPU farm, lots of disk, and they started to make sense of all that data. The next step we did is we fired on that cognition engine for them as an early customer, and then crawl, kind of walk, then run as we do AI ops, which, mind you, in the industry is hard to believe when companies say they have it. They need to show it. But in this example, we saw Barclays start to have more data at the runtime to be given to them to make decisions faster and make actions sooner. And the net of all this, we said we were going to turn it off on them just to see what they would say. They literally threatened us. They said, if you turn off that cognition engine based on what we see now, we're going to be really unhappy with you. So that's a simple customer story that we've got. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So, thank you. So I'm going to welcome, thank you, Kevin and Alex on the stage. Here's your clicker.
Steve.
Awesome, and thank you, Trace3, for having us in your event today. And thank you for coming.
Congratulations, Steve.
Thank you.
So I'm Kevin Donahue. I'm Principal Architect with the IT Operations Analytics practice here at Trace3, and this is Alex. The two of us are peers in this practice, and one of the things we try to do is we try to bring sense and reason to a lot of the activity that goes on around tools and people and process. And I want to emphasize one point that Steve was talking about is AI Ops is not simply a product, it's a transformational journey. It's something that borrows from big data techniques and strategies in order to give you prescriptive advice. It's a large market area. It's about $3 billion right now, and it's growing very rapidly. So you can expect vendors like Steve, AppDynamics, Cisco, they're going to be producing a lot of products that are promising a lot of things, and it'll be really important for you to carefully establish your problem space and your urgency for implementing something in the immediate future as you start your journey on AI Ops. At this point, about 60% of your peers are already in the process of implementing an ML strategy. About 2/3 of them are in the early stages of it. Probably the most common use case, one of the most common use cases is actually, what Steve's talking about, predictive analytics. And that's because 82% of executives believe that it will be the most impactful thing in their operations environments, bringing somewhere between a 2 to 5x return on initial investment in the first year. And I keep saying it, but it's more than just a product. It's a journey. So let's just say maybe you're here. You're siloed. You've got good teams that know their area of expertise, but there's no cross-functionality visibility. And so to bring in a product at this point doesn't benefit the organization. It doesn't benefit operations in general. Let's say you move forward a little bit. Now you've got some cross-functionality going on between teams, single pane of glass. You need to move forward into what we call IT Operations Analytics. This is where you're aggregating all of the data sources into a common data lake, and you're applying machine learning to surface the anomaly detection, the interesting patterns, and helping you be very prescriptive about what you should focus on next. We use a system of engagement, this reference architecture, to help describe a complete practice. 6 key areas. Monitoring tools are just a part of it, but you can see there's many more areas that would also benefit from machine learning to accelerate activity for people. And I just want to leave you with 4 key characteristics I think you should consider when you're looking at an AI ops-based product. First one is openness. Anybody who's saying that they are going to do analysis on your data, they should be able to take it from your tools of choice. Second thing is they need to be data agnostic. They need to be able to deal with different types of data, whether that's structured, unstructured, event-based, logs. They need to be able to use all of those data sources and aggregate together in order to be able to give you the most complete view of your machine learning model. Third is scale and speed. We're talking about a lot of data here, and it's just increasing. As we go to microservices, there's just mountains of data coming in real time. And it needs to deal with that data, do the analysis, and provide you that predictive analytics at speed. And so then lastly, it needs to use advanced analytics. And by this, I mean a supervised machine learning model that regularly uses sample data to improve its accuracy over time.
Thanks, Kevin.
Sure.
So my name is Alex, and Kevin was speaking to the what and why of AI ops. I'll be speaking to the how. How do we actually do this? Everybody's always talking about AI ops and what it is and what it isn't maybe, but maybe not how to actually do it. ML, machine learning, is a product. It's algorithms. AI is made up of ML. And then you have AI ops, which is made up of AI. And it's more of a strategy or a mindset. We're talking about a journey here today. It's a part of ITOA. ITOA is the larger machine, and AI ops is just a cog in that machine, right? But it's a very complex machine, and that cog by itself is very complex. So if there's any engineers or high-level math or physics college majors here, you'll know that if you want to solve a very complex problem, you first need to chop it down into smaller, easier to solve problems, solve all the small problems, and then you'll eventually get to solving the large problem, right? So how do we approach that? How do we find those small pieces and solve for them? What our practice recommends doing and the approach that we take is a triaging approach. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with triaging in general, there's 4 different phases for it. There's assessment, prioritization, treatment, and maintain. Assessment, you basically get a baseline of vitals or some health, just some kind of information about what you're trying to solve for. Prioritization is you find problems that you're trying to solve for, and you prioritize them based on metrics of some kind. And I'm talking generally here for triaging. And then treatment is finding solutions for those problems and applying those solutions to the problem. And then finally, maintain is just monitoring, basically, what you applied, what solution you applied, and see if it's working. And if it's not working, go back and figure out why not and correct it. So this is traditionally used very heavily in the medical profession, right? Hospitals do this all the time. Field ops, military, all that kind of stuff do triaging out in out wherever they're taking care of patients. And if anybody here is in IT ops, you also do triaging. You may not do it in this structured format here, but you also do triaging in your day-to-day problem-solving days. So I want to go in this one. So these are the stages for our approach. We have assess, prioritize, treat, and maintain. And basically, what we look to do is, in the assessment phase, we look to, go very wide and very wide and shallow across the IT organization. So we take a look at the system of action reference framework that Kevin showed you earlier, and we take a look at each one of those 6 areas, and there's a couple more down at the bottom for the monitoring ecosystem. but we'll take a look at the entire landscape for your IT organization from end to end
Sounds good.
and assess basically what that looks like. Out of that comes basically a list of problems, weaknesses, and strengths within the company, within the organization, the IT organization. And we then go through the prioritization phase and prioritize which ones are the weakest based on business objectives, based on metrics, based on a whole number of different kind of things. And when we prioritize those and we find the weakest one and we look for solutions, right? Jointly look for solutions. And then once you find that one simple, I say simple, but simple as in the context of the larger problem, weakness, then we have a solution for it, then we treat it by applying that solution, we implement that solution. And then after we do the implementation, we maintain it and we monitor it to make sure that it was the right solution. And we'll go through each of those areas basically of the framework and do one by one. So why do we do it this way? The triaging approach is basically, we establish trust that way. It's great for establishing trust between whoever's doing the assessment or the problem solving and the person that needs the problem solved. And then, it sets expectations. That's, basically, that's kind of self-explanatory. It basically just lets everybody know what's going on, why we're doing it. The why is always the biggest thing to make sure that we got. And then it sets clear roadmaps for remediation. So this is the roadmap on how to solve the solution. And at the very end, you get measurable results, right? You started at a certain baseline, and then you're at some future state. So basically, and I'm going to zip through these next 4 slides pretty quickly, but when we do the assessment, it's usually about a week's worth of time, maybe 2 weeks worth of time. It's going through conducting interviews, taking in as much data as possible from the people that we're interviewing, reviewing processes, all very surface level though, trying to find the weaknesses and the strengths of the IT organization. And then what we do is we'll take all that list and get with business leaders and prioritize that list with the business and figure out what needs to be attacked first. And then once we figure out what needs to be attacked, we come up with a solution, designs, roadmaps, everything to actually implement, no implementation, but to actually implement it. And then the next phase, again, is the treat phase where we do the treatment of we actually apply the solution itself. That could take, it's very variable in how long that could possibly take. Once it's all applied, then again, we do the monitoring, make sure that, we like to stay sticky with the customer and make sure that, that whatever was implemented is working, is satisfying all the requirements that we had when we set out initially to solve the problem. And then we move on to the next phase, right? Whatever the next, we don't need to do the assessment anymore because we've already done that, so we go to the next weakness or the next problem spot or whatever. And then we'll start attacking that. Find a solution, do the implementation, do the monitoring, and just keep going, over and over and over. So what does that actually look like when we do that? This is a timeline just a sample timeline that I put in here. Single-threaded, meaning there's not a lot of resources to the organization.
They talk to VMware just like do anything else. It's one
what
of the
does it
number
look
one
like to go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3?
And so I don't know how well they
First
partner
is
with
a
them or
wide and
not,
shallow
how many times they've done it. I'm
assessment
sure,
of
just like
operational
us, they've probably done it
landscape,
before.
right? We're using the framework as the foundation for the assessment. We'll take a look at system of engagement. We'll take a look at system of record, monitoring ecosystem, telemetry metrics, everything.
I don't know that it's
Process,
that
people,
crucial.
and
So they're
technology,
considered
not
a
just
ready
tools.
partner, which I think is like the
And
lowest level
once we
partner
find
you can be
something
with
that,
HP. We're going to
an
start the
area that we
process
want
of
to
trying to
assess, we'll
escalate
go
that
right
into
into this one says agent
maybe
data,
Pathfinder,
monitoring
maybe even
ecosystem.
HP Complete.
So this is where
That'll help
agent
with
data
sales
is
reps
where
getting
things are
commission on that
actively
stuff,
pulled. So think APIs, think SNMP.
No, they're not.
Any agents
Yeah,
that
they're
run
not.
on any
Yeah.
system.
Now, if
Then
he knows
again,
that they're finally
step
moving
number
forward
3,
with that,
we'll go
that's
through
great
and
because we've been
either
trying to
decommission
figure out how to escalate
obsolete tools, or
them. The
we're
problem is
adding
that
new tools or
Morpheus
adding
is
some
being
training
I don't even think they're
just
they're an
don't know how to
IPO.
operate the tools, or
Somebody's going to buy them.
processes that are broken.
And so we
trying to
wanted
figure
them,
out how to
maybe
fix
figure out a
the
way to either buy
and
them
then,
or lock them in
step
or do
number
something.
4, you have
Because
two
heaven forbid
sections
we
there,
have
you
5
monitor the
deployments of them
environment,
and then they
so
get bought by
that's a fairly
Cisco or Dell,
straightforward
we're
way
screwed. So,
it's
that's the
periodic,
challenge.
it's not ongoing,
But yeah,
and then we just move on
Dell
to the
may,
next one, system of
and
engagement.
VMware may be able to say they have more
in this
deployments than we
example,
do. We've
and then
probably
it just
got
repeats itself.
almost none under our belt. There's a few pilots in place. They're
Some
easy to work with.
organizations have enough resources to go
I don't know that it's an
multi-threaded,
official deal
right? So we
registration
can run
thing, but
multiple
getting them on the
work,
phone and getting them to cooperate and work with
workflows.
us has been very easy.
work streams.
Can't say that about
to-
a lot of
to
other people, so
attack
that's
the problem,
good news.
in
But
in
yeah, I don't know
parallel
that we
way.
have any
So in this particular
formal
one,
way
you
of
start out
locking it
with the
down, or
assessment
I
first,
don't even
why
know
not
if to
shall,
call it a deal
figure out what you
registration.
need to do, and then in this particular case, we're doing agent data and maintenance.
I can get us. I know that people. I've been on the phone with them several
actively
times for
pulled,
3M and some other customers,
metrics,
but I
and
don't know that off the top of my head.
passively accepted metrics.
But
To
yeah,
the passive side, you can think of like
oh,
syslog,
there is
SCP traps,
there is
or,
yeah
like Netflix.
there is no.
And then number three,
I don't know
we got
that there
parallel
have
work streams
I
going.
don't
so
know.
we're
I'm not even sure who
decommissioning
the partner
and training
manager is,
teams
or
on
if there is
existing
one
tools,
facing them, because they're
new
not a
tools to
high-level
fill
partner.
gaps,
There's no
on and on, right?
team
I'm
facing
just
them that I'm
repeating
aware of.
myself now because this is just,
Yeah.
it's just a very
Yeah.
structured, we go from 1 to 2
Yeah.
to 3 to 4, and then go back. and forth, back and forth.
We could, but I don't
So
know if that's
we've
ever
currently
happened or
got
not. I
one
mean, like I said,
customer right
I
now
don't
that is
know.
running a multi-threaded,
Like I said,
scenario
we just
with
don't have that
4
formal
work
relationship with
streams
them.
running at
So
the same
will
time.
Dan go visit them? Maybe
One
they're
of
in
them is,
Denver
synthetic
for the most part,
monitoring,
most of them.
synthetic data. Another one
Yeah,
is
so
machine
they're
data,
right next to
agent
Kurt
data,
Lacey,
and
actually,
system of engagement.
like right down the street from him.
So,
Now, they probably have
this
multiple offices.
multi-threaded
They're not very
example you
big. It's
can
like we're
see
talking
here,
75 people tops.
Typically, I put this one
50
up
of them
here
are like
because
engineers,
typically what
so
happens is,
not a
you
huge
wanna get
organization,
visibility, so
but
agent
they,
data, machine data,
do a pretty good
those
job.
get
The
you,
product's
like, the
pretty damn
vast
good.
majority of the
So
telemetry
not a
that
problem
we're
there.
looking for in
but,
your environment.
I've asked Scott
And
Wiest. I've asked
shortly right after that, the
can
system
we
of
do
engagement
anything
and system
to
of records,
elevate
the
their
system of
status
engagement will be
and
like your real-time
get a better
monitoring,
relationship with them? And nothing
event
is bad. It's
monitoring
just
and
it's
event
just kind of very.
deduplication and,
Might as well be the radio
little bit
shack
of
on the side of the road.
noise,
We don't have any relationship
event
with
noise,
them. That's
alert
normal.
noise, things like that. And then
Or
the system of
significant
record is going
enough.
to be where your CMDB lives, your knowledge base, your ticketing system, and all that. And getting those.
We were
you know,
looking at
those
them
things
because we had no
connected,
choice because
and
we knew
this
we knew
order
OneSphere was
seems to work
going
out for,
not going to fit the requirements for a
pretty
lot of
well.
people. Now that
And then after
OneSphere is
that's
definitely
done,
going to
then we
go
usually
to
go for,
to
for
shit.
another
To put it bluntly, with them
so
becoming
far
a
seems
point
to be
next
working pretty good. Working
private
4
cloud
streams at one
managed
time.
thing.
We've got other
Every
customers
customer that
are
was
doing
looking
2,
at it
one of them
is now
doing
a
one.
absolute no,
We're
because
kind
it's
of,
just going to die off.
We're very
Now
flexible.
they'll never
in
admit
that
that.
kind
That's
of,
the reality behind that. So
methodology.
we're going to need Morpheus more than ever.
So
Yeah, if
there's a
their
lot of
customer is-
information
you gotta
there,
be
not a lot of
cognizant
time
this.
to,
The customer
to
is
speak and just
happy
kinda
with
like
VMware,
give
especially
you
Cloud
more
Foundation.
information, but if you have
Adding
any
vRealize
questions or you want to
with
get more
with Cloud
details or
Foundation's
anything,
Lifecycle Manager is literally one button.
if you're a customer,
Well,
contact
not one
an
button.
account
It's literally
manager.
one screen with a
If you're
bed
not
a field you fill in,
become a
and it auto
customer,
launches
find an account
vRealize
manager,
from scratch.
otherwise,
So
just
kind of
hit us
hard
up.
if you're going against a Dell
where I'm on the
competitiveness
east
to say
side,
that, hey, Morpheus
evangelizing
is
on the
going to be
east
a
side for
manual
this, and
layer
then
on
doing
top of
delivery
it
kind of,
versus vCloud
across the whole
Foundation
country.
can hit a
Kevin's,
couple buttons and it
evangelizing
launches
on the west
vRealize.
side and
So
interacting
when
with
you
the
compare them,
account
Dell's going to have a better
customers
story
on
than
that
us
side.
because,
So
but
we can
we would
both
have to
talk.
focus on the fact that Morpheus is
Anything
agnostic.
you want to talk about for
It's
ITOA,
not, VMware is like
AIOps,
everything VM
anything
is
like that, just
VMware is the only
there.
flavor of ice cream. Morpheus supports,
So,
26
blew
different
through
cloud
that.
providers and very agnostic.
Anybody have any questions or anything before we
Yeah.
step off?
Okay, good. I haven't talked to I haven't had Morpheus explain their Nutanix integration or show it, but we probably could. They're really good, easy showing it on the demo. They're really easy with a pilot.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
yeah.
there is
It
one.
literally doesn't take that long to show. A couple hours. Usually we do it in pieces, but it again shows very well. So
So why does we say that it'll take Dell VMware 2 years to deliver VCF as a private cloud instance,
2 years. Wow.
and that they will fail? So everyone,
It's okay. vRealize is very complicated. vCloud Foundation is not.
Right.
Now, vCloud Foundation can only be done on a greenfield. You can only deploy a brand new instance of it. It won't, and then you can connect it to existing VMware ESX environments. But vCloud Foundation, once it's deployed, then connects to old stuff. Their lifecycle manager is what makes vCloud Foundation easy to deploy, and it's that same lifecycle manager they're now using for
number
vRealize
one,
because
the
vRealize, all
simplest,
the
not
modules of it, is
simplest,
a
but
nightmare to
I
manage, a
guess the
nightmare to
quickest
deploy,
answer
and a
to
nightmare to
that, to
upgrade.
finding anomalies
Hence,
in general,
they're
the
putting
needle
all their
in the
efforts into
haystack
that
kind of thing is building
lifecycle
baselines
manager to
by
make it
finding
less
what normal
painful.
looks like.
So you're right. Average
As
deployment
soon as
of a
you know what
vCloud, of a
normal for
vRealize,
something looks like, a
not a
network,
vCloud
a
Foundation, that's pretty
computer,
easy.
an application, a KPI
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah, correct,
Once you
correct. Oh,
establish
sure,
what
sure.
normal looks like,
Yeah.
this is what happens.
vRealize, it's like 25 VMs. It's a little complicated on-prem, but again, the lifecycle manager makes that easier. If you haven't deployed it, you let vCloud Foundation deploy it, and you do the upgrade, it's going to be a lot easier than having to retrofit an existing vRealize.
Somebody
It's a
raised a
nightmare to
little flag,
maintain.
maybe.
And we've had a lot of customers that
standard
have a
deviations,
problem with
something
it. It's
really
just a lot of
going
effort.
on.
It's like
3 is like
OpenStack.
the place is on
You got to
fire.
commit to it and put a lot of effort into it.
That's how.
They're working on
Generally,
that,
we
and it's
find
not
meals at
perfect.
ASICS.
But we have had a fair share of
Looks
customers
like
tell us that
we've
if you realize this was
run
so
out of
painful
time,
Kicked out.
and
we're
expensive that I
getting
wasn't
overrun.
worth it.
But thank you for your
Orpheus
time,
is
everyone.
just
Thank you for your time.
half the effort, not even half, less than half the effort, less than half the complexity. So we should have no problem with that. I don't have any factual information to show a customer to say,